I could barely hold my excitement in check as I climbed into the chariot that was to take me to Valmiki's ashram. It was a light vehicle made for speed, just large enough for myself and Lakshman, who was to drive me there and return the next day, and the many boxes and pots stacked behind our seats. The morning was chilly, and Urmila tucked a shawl around me. I wish you were coming with me. You would have loved the ashram, I said as I hugged her. I wish I were too, she said, throwing a reproachful glance at Lakshman because he too had insisted that she needed to stay in the palace and look after the mothers. I had to admit that he had a point. The mothers had grown frail and forgetful. They needed someone around to spend time with them, to make sure they ate their meals on time. Maybe you can come with Lakshman to fetch me, I said. That is what I will do, she said, cheering up. In the meantime, I will train Saudamini carefully so she can take care of the mothers while I am gone. I looked back at the ramparts of the palace one last time as Lakshman cracked his whip, setting the chariot in motion. Ram had left before sunrise while I was still half asleep. Apparently, there was some kind of trouble at the border. A needle of unease pricked my heart. The houses and halls and marketplaces and even the massive gates of the city soon fell behind us, obscured by the dust of our passing. Lakshman drove fast, answering only in monosyllables when I tried to engage him in conversation. Why so glum, brother in law? I joked. Are you missing Urmila already? But he only bowed formally and said, Please forgive me. I have a lot on my mind today. He was probably concerned about the trouble at the border and about the fact that Ram was there alone handling it without his help. Don't worry, I said. Ram will be fine. Bharat and Shatrughna are not too far away. They will help him if necessary. For all you know, he will be back in the palace before you return. I am sure you are right, Lakshman said gloomily. I refused to let his despondence infect me. This was my last chance to enjoy the forest before I was plunged into the responsibilities of motherhood, and I was determined to make the most of it. I watched the many greens of the trees and bushes flowing past me, speckled with bright dots of flowers. They were like a balm to my eyes. I hadn't realized how much I had missed nature in its wildness. I took great gulping breaths of the fresh, wild smelling air and loosened my hair to allow the wind to blow through it. In the afternoon, I took out the food that Urmila had packed and offered some to Lakshman. But he said he didn't want anything. I shrugged and ate it all myself, the delicious meals with vegetables and cool buttermilk to wash it all down. Because of the pregnancy, I was constantly hungry. The rest of the trip, I watched for different kinds of birds and was delighted that I could still recognize them. I pointed them out to Lakshman, telling him their names. He didn't appear too interested, but that didn't dampen my enthusiasm. It was almost evening when we reached the beautiful Yamuna river. I remembered that Valmiki's hermitage was not far from here. There was a rickety bridge that Lakshman had to navigate carefully. Clearly, not many chariots came to the sage's ashram. When we were on the other side, I asked Lakshman to pause. I wanted to tidy myself before meeting the sage and his wife. I stepped into the stream to wash my face and drink the fresh, clear water. It was cold and the current pulled hard at my feet, but I couldn't resist splashing around a bit. It had been a long time since I had played in a river. Do you remember, Lakshman, how in Panchavati Ram and I started turning to him, but what I saw made me forget my words. Lakshman was weeping, his face streaked with tears, his body racked by silent sobs. He kept his eyes on the ground. In my entire life, I had never seen Lakshman cry. My hands began to shake. I tried to ask him what was wrong, but the words froze in my throat. Finally, Lakshman said, Sister in law, I ask your deepest pardon, though I know you will never forgive me for this. Please keep in mind I am only doing what Ram asked. No, commanded me, not as my brother but as my king. I am to leave you in Valmiki's ashram. Yes, I know, I said, still not understanding why he was so upset. That is why we have come here, for me to spend a week in Valmiki's ashram. Not a week, Lakshman said. The rest of your life, Ram is banishing you from his kingdom. My head spun. I had to sit down on the muddy river bank to keep from falling. Was this some kind of a recurrent nightmare I was having? It happened every once in a while. I would wake up gasping, hearing again his voice in my head. Now I have slain Ravan and set you free. Here ends my duty to you and my responsibility. Go where you will to live out the rest of your days. I said to myself, I didn't hear Lakshman correctly, or maybe he was the one who had misunderstood Ram. What do you mean, banishing me? I haven't done anything wrong. Are you sure that is what Ram said? He is the most righteous person I know. He wouldn't do such an unjust thing, especially when I am carrying his children. No, Lakshman, don't look away. Explain to me what is going on. I got the story in reluctant pieces from Lakshman as the sun sank below the horizon. There were rumors in Ayodhya, people whispering about my chastity. She was with him in Lanka for an awfully long time. How do we know that there really was a trial by fire? None of us were there, nor our priests or courtiers. Only Ram and Lakshman, and you can't quite call them unbiased, can you? And the child she is carrying, how do we know it is Ram's? How do we know when exactly it happened? And then came the attacks on Ram himself. Maybe he is just like his father. Remember how old Dashrath was blinded by infatuation, doing whatever the Kaikeyi asked, no longer knowing or caring what was right and what was wrong. When Dashrath vanished Ram, we went through years of bad luck, famine. With Ram bringing Sita home, impure as she is, who knows what will befall us now? And how about our wives? They are going to start expecting the same kind of submissive behavior from us. They will be doing whatever they want, going wherever they want. Anything we say to them, they will shrug away, saying, if Ram can accept Sita after she lived with Ravan, surely you can put up with this little thing. Or do you think you are better than the king? Everyone talks about Ram Rajya, heaven on earth, but it is becoming a place of lax morals. Maybe we should be thinking of moving somewhere else. A huge boulder pressed down on my chest. I had difficulty speaking, even breathing. Finally, I managed a whisper. And all this time, I thought the people loved us because of how hard we were working to improve their lives, to make Koshal the best governed kingdom ever. Was it all a sham? The crowds cheering us when we appeared on the palace balcony? No, Lakshman said. Many people still worship Ram and think you are a kind and wonderful queen. But the gossip is growing, and as you know, Ram has very high standards for kingship. He feels that there must never be an occasion for anyone to point a finger at him. The agents whom Ram sent among the people in disguise have been hearing these mutterings for a while. Loving Ram, they kept it to themselves, but it got to the point where they felt they had to tell him. I was with him when he got the news. I have never seen him so distressed, not even when the battle with Ravan was at its worst. You know how important his kingship is to him, how crucial it is for him to do the right thing. But he loves you too with his whole heart. Additionally, he is well aware of his duties as a husband. It was torture for him, caught in the middle of these different conflicting duties, trying to figure out what was the right action. A day and night he suffered, unable to focus on anything at court. He wouldn't talk to anyone about it, not even me. Finally, he decided to go for a walk around the royal lake to clear his head, and there he overheard two washermen arguing. Listening, he realized they were a father in law and son in law. The father in law was begging the young man to take back his wife, whom he had thrown out of the house. But the son in law was adamant. I am not like Ram, he said. I don't take back a wife who comes home late in the night, having spent her time doing who knows what. How can you say that? You know, she was with her friend who was having a difficult childbirth. The father in law protested. Women will say whatever suits their purposes, the son in law said. All I know is that she came home with another man. Why are you worrying about her anyway? I hear she has gone running to Sita, who has taken her in. Birds of a feather. I tell you, we are well rid of her. And if Ram had any backbone at all, he would get rid of Sita too. Pieces of the puzzle began to come together for me. Ram's distracted air, which I thought was due to state matters. The way he cut me off brusquely when I tried to tell him about the washwoman. The way he was suddenly willing to let me go off to says Valmiki's. My body trembled, but this time with anger. So he banished me because a few people are gossiping. People always talk. Should an elephant turn around and run away because dogs are barking? You know, Ram, Lakshman said sadly. He's always believed that the reputation of a king should be above reproach, and even more so, the reputation of a queen. It is what he has built his whole life around. He can't change his nature, no more than a leopard can change its spots. Believe me, I tried everything I could make him decide otherwise. Finally, he said that if I didn't obey him, he would banish me too to the forests. I considered it seriously. Would it be so bad if Urmila and I, for surely she would come with me, lived a simple forest life by your side with a clear conscience? But then I thought Ram would be left all alone without either of the two people who truly love him and whom he loves most. Alone in that dark, stone cold cave of a palace, for that is what it is going to be now without you. I couldn't do that to him, sister in law. Rage had receded from me. My teeth were chattering. I felt cold, cold and defeated. But why didn't he tell me any of this? I said. Why didn't he explain what was going on? I would have understood. I would have been angry, yes, but I would also have sympathized with him. Don't I know how important his reputation as king is to him? Together we might have come up with a better plan. And even if we couldn't have come up with a solution, at least I would have been part of the decision, not a victim of it. I choked up with tears. I tried to swallow them, but they kept coming. But he didn't trust me, Lakshman. My husband, whom I trusted from the very moment my father put my hand in his. My husband, whom I believed in through the darkest night of my despair in Lanka. My husband, whom I forgave even after his harsh words on the battlefield in Lanka gave me no choice but to throw myself into a fire. My husband, to whom the gods themselves proclaimed my innocence. That husband has now discarded me like an old sandal. You go back and tell him this, Lakshman. He sentenced me to banishment because people were whispering that I might have betrayed him. But he is the real betrayer. Who is going to sentence him? I turned and started pushing my way blindly through the bushes, not sure where I was going. Behind me, I could hear Lakshman calling out frantically, urging me to stop, but that only made me hurry. Brambles tore at me. I didn't care. When I had stepped into the fire in Lanka, I had believed that nothing could hurt me any worse, body or soul. How wrong I had been. The pain was so excruciating now that if it had not been for the babies, I would have thrown myself into the Yamuna and ended the burning. My babies, the most innocent, the most wronged. I could feel them inside me, trembling, clutching at each other, sensing that something terrible had happened. Don't be afraid, little ones, I whispered, pushing my way determinedly into the dark, even though I had no idea of what it held. Hot tears scalded my cheeks. I am going to live for you. I am going to guard you with my last breath. I am going to love you enough for mother and father both so you feel no lack. I am going to teach you everything you need to know to be princess. But more than that, I will teach you what you need to know to be good human beings so that you will never do to a woman what your father has done to me. Thanks for listening.